India's market news headquarters. Cutting-edge analysis. Influential insights. Market-moving intelligence. Broadcasting live from the CNBC TV18 Motilal Oswal studios in Mumbai.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. It's the middle of the week, Wednesday morning. We're coming to you from the CNBC TV18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Nigel and Surabhi. Guys, hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning. I guess global markets taking a bit of a break, at least Wall Street, that is, but plenty of cues here, plenty to go over.
Lots to go over. And Nigel?
Well, indeed, and result season is picking up steam. So we'll have a few earnings coming in today as well from the Nifty pack itself.
Absolutely. And although the handover from overnight has been a little softish, and I think we kind of deal with that at least at 9:15, and then we'll see what happens. Yesterday was a blah kind of a day, neither really up or down, and very difficult to make any sense of it, except maybe 2-3 groups of stocks which did well. So that's the backdrop. I mean, neither here nor there. But last night, overnight, from the US equity markets, the signal is a little bit of a risk off. Not very much. Nasdaq was down about just under 1%. And that's the change that we'll have to deal with. CBOE Wix, it held near intraday highs, about 21. There was a jump and then it held near intraday highs. The sell-off in the US equity market was led by semiconductors. I mean, they're responsible for the bulk of the rise, the big rally over the last couple of years, AI, semiconductors, and last night they took indices a little lower. Reports say US officials are planning or thinking about and may implement capping sales of advanced AI chips to certain countries, right? Read China. And this is, of course, one reason why stocks like NVIDIA, etc., were down between 4-5%. There were numbers from one semiconductor name as well, which disappointed, and that one was down even more. But NVIDIA, of course, is the big one, and that had influence on the entire bunch. Data was not very supportive. Empire manufacturing numbers came in much weaker than expectations. Yields lost about 7 basis points, so just about 4% now. Dollar index was flat, not very much by way of change. Oil prices, but I think the 4% drop that we're looking at this morning was well advertised even when we were trading, so it's not new. And the market kind of traded through that 4% drop, through the last few hours of trade, but just sort of reflecting where we finally left off. Now, there's just one news report out of Wall Street Journal, which I want to put out, which essentially says that this is a sourced piece, but without naming who the information has been gotten from. The piece says that recent measures out of China have been for de-risking rather than outright stimulus. So, I mean, China at the margin has been important, is important. We can talk more about this as we go along. But this perhaps will have a bit of a sobering impact once again with regards to this entire China revitalization, China trade. So where do we begin? I think we'll begin with a cut as the GIFT Nifty is indicating as well. The more constructive view is that maybe the Nifty is consolidating around, trying to form a bit of a base here. Many technical analysts are of the view that we're still in a pullback from the highs, and the up moves are not to be trusted, at least in the near term. But the positive view is that maybe we are consolidating, forming a bit of a base, and we need to take out the previous high, which is 25,234, before we talk about higher levels. And that's the first sort of resistance which the market will face. Above this, then you're looking at the 50 and 61.8% retracement. Same numbers that we've put out over the last 2-3 days now. By the way, the Nifty yesterday failed to take out the 40-day exponential moving average. And we kind of ended about 0.25% lower. Support for the Nifty comes in at 24,920, which is the recent swing low that we had. Nifty Bank, it ended slightly above the 40-day exponential moving average yesterday. And here we're looking at the 50 and the 61.8% retracement levels. So that's 52,330 to begin with. That's the first level. And on the way down, the low of 51,005 will need to be protected if some of this needs to work out. So we'll see. I mean, I think we begin with a slightly weaker open. Earnings, remember, for the state, but it's nothing new. It's well advertised that Q2 is weaker and it's begun on a weaker note. So, we'll have to sort of look through some of those things and, of course, individual numbers as they come through. Just leaving you with the GIFT Nifty as a change and just to look at what we are seeing. So 80-point lowers the implied open as far as markets are concerned. So reflecting almost fully the cut that we had last time. Surabhi.
Oh, absolutely. Red is a bit rare on Wall Street these days, but that's what we got yesterday. So the market taking a bit of a breather. That also, I mean, after intraday touching record levels once again. Asia this morning is taking over from that weak Wall Street end because a lot of the markets in the region are down quite a bit. Up in the Japan market, if you're looking at the Nikkei, that's dropping about 2% right now. Hong Kong is lower. Mainland Shanghai is lower. Hong Kong, remember, slumped about 3.5% yesterday. And on top of that, we're seeing some more selling come through. So the setup is not very, very positive. However, we have some decent cues to look out for. One, of course, is the fall in oil prices that Prashant alluded to. And the second big thing is that this FPI selling business, sell India, buy China, whatever that trade was that was going on, that is cooling off in a substantial way. After many, many, many days, the FII sell figure has come down to sub 2,000 crores. The number yesterday was 1,748 to be precise, and domestic institutions were lapping it up. They almost entirely bought whatever the FII sold at a net level with a net purchase of 1,650 odd crores. So the fund flow position for the market is stabilizing. That's the good news. We're going to get into election season full throttle, and politics and whatever sort of state-specific action we see, that's going to be dominating headlines. The dates are out, so just to put it on record, Maharashtra, it's a single-phase election on the 20th of November. Jharkhand is in 2 phases. And then counting of votes and the result announcements are on the 23rd. So 23rd becomes an important date with respect to those 2 key states. Lots of company-specific news, and we'll get you, more details on this later. But watch out for HDFC Live. That stock was the worst performer on the Nifty. Now, the management did try and come in on the con call and assuage some of those concerns on the margin. They're also talking about overall guidance on growth being better than what was previously anticipated. So let's see if there's any recovery in that stock. Cochin Shipyard, there's an OFS happening, so watch out for the PSU pack and Cochin in specific. And finally, Hyundai, very interesting. Day one has been fairly subdued for this mega IPO. The total subscription as of yesterday was just 0.2%, with retail buying in a lot more than institutions and the HNI fraternity. So let's see, day 2, day 3, it should pick up, but Hyundai is in focus as well. Today is a busy day on the results calendar. Bajaj Auto, which was also very subdued ahead of earnings yesterday. That's the big one to watch out for. There's a couple of mid-cap IT names like L&T Tech, Emphasis, Crystal as well. So fair amount of earnings action as well. And I'd like to end with something on Telecom, which is not necessarily stock moving immediately, but it seems to be fairly big and it's brewing, which is the battle for satellite telecommunication and the battle between large global names like Starlink and Indian incumbents like Airtel, like Jio. And this was the most interesting takeaway from the India Mobile conference that took place yesterday, where the Indian companies were batting for a level playing field, saying if a global major has to come in, and if you're looking at satellite rights, then they should have to pay for spectrum in the same auction way that the Indian companies pay for it. But the minister then finally spoke on the matter, and the minister, that is Mr. Scindia, went on to say that satellite spectrum across the world is allocated administratively. It is not auctioned out. So India perhaps has to follow the global precedent. But there will be a cost of this allocation. It will not be just sort of handed out for free, and that cost will be decided by TRA. It's a hot space. It's a very hot debate. We had Mr. Musk tweeting on this as well. He's watching the India action very carefully and wanting to come in. So let's see, this sort of in a big picture way will keep the telecom sector in focus as well. Nigel.
Well, on the flows front, just want to make 2 quick points there. Now the FI and the DI number, they're almost, nullifying each other. And the second factor is if you compare it with October 3rd, at that point of time, we had a net sell number of 16,000 crores. Yeah. That's come down to around 1,700 crores. 1,600 now. That's down by close to around 90%. So on the flows front, we're in far better shape on October 15th in comparison to October 3rd. But we've got a tailwind for us, right? And that's a big global tailwind and macro tailwind that we're talking about, because crude oil prices are well behaved yet again. No escalation, mostly de-escalation is what we're seeing on the geopolitical issues, and that's a macro tailwind for us. The other one is that the Nifty Bank, the buy on dip has restarted out there. Even yesterday's trading session, that did well. Plays out the weekly expiry, so that's going to be the key mover for today's trade. What about positioning? Well, the FIs, they continue to remain net short. They're adding a few net short positions as well, moving to around 1.6 lakh contracts. While the client side, they're net long with close to around 2 lakh contracts on the long side. In percentage terms, the FI short positions are at around 35%. options data comes up for you on the screen, and you saw the PCR came down because the call writing came back yesterday, and the bears seem to be getting confident. 25,000 call, 25,100, 25,200 call. All of them did see a fair bit of addition, telling you that the bears are getting a little bit too confident. So if the bulls can, get to those levels, then maybe we could see a bit of a short covering bounce, which brings us to the levels that we're looking at. So I'm looking at the options data, and you're getting the resistance zone, which comes in at around 25,250, around 25,300. Recent low becomes a reference point at around 24,700. So that's the broad range that we're looking at. But the Nifty Bank, that's the one that's got into buy on dips mode, and that's going to be the mover. So it gets support at around 51,500. We almost visited that yesterday, but it'll decisively break out once it trades continuously above that 52,100 and then heads towards the 20 DMA. So the Nifty Bank, that's the one that you could be more optimistic on in comparison to the Nifty, just going by the recent price action. Stocks that I'm looking at, HDFC Life. The big loser yesterday, the question is, will the street buy into the management commentary? Because they are sounding quite optimistic, and they're saying that the margins in the last quarter were hit by higher ULIP share, and there were price increases that were affected that didn't reflect in the past quarter, but they got a little bit delayed. So will the street buy into that commentary? That's going to be very important because there were shots that got into the system. Let's see whether or not we see a pop on that one. The other one that we're looking at is Interglobe Aviation. A lot of tailwinds out there. You had United Airlines overnight that reported a set of numbers. They have announced a $1.5 billion buyback program. Besides that, crude oil prices are lower, which will keep ATF prices subdued. They're holding on to their market share, and we're getting into a busy season. So I'll keep an eye out on both these two stocks, HDFC Life and Interglobe Aviation.
Well, we'll keep an eye out on those as well. Nigel, thank you very much for that.